Hey everybody, good morning. Appreciate everybody being here. Hope you had a great Thanksgiving. It's a joke. I say, officially a full day two here. You get sworn in on the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. It's a little more light workload as we go through the holiday. So we had a few meetings. My first official day on Wednesday. We're right in the thick of things. So I'll give you a couple updates. Certainly happy to take any questions that you have. Quickly, it's not too substantial of an update, but just to let you know, our conversations continue as far as the port and Warehouse 4 with pickleball. That was mentioned a few weeks ago, and that won't be addressed in the December council meeting. But that, again, I didn't want us to go too far without mentioning that continues and is progressing nicely. We think potentially having something ready to approve by January. I've had some really good conversations with the folks that would be operating that facility. So excited to keep that going. There was a report, national report about airport fares, and certainly wanted to clear the air on that a little bit. It was just a little picking of data. There's 463 airports. They really only picked the top 100. But if you look at just the Gulf Coast, Mobile, Gulfport, Tallahassee are all about 20% or more expensive than Pensacola, and only Panama City and Fort Walton of those six, we are actually fourth. And a lot of that, there's a lot of factors that go into that. You take an example like Fort Walton that has a higher percentage of low-cost carriers, ultra low-cost carriers as they call it, and so certainly they're going to be at the bottom of that Gulf Coast one based on some of the carriers that they have. So we're still doing a great job out there, but a conversation that will be happening in the long term is what's next for the future of the expansion of the airport, and that's something that again doesn't happen quickly, but is certainly central on our radar to start getting the ball rolling on a terminal expansion. And the more service we have and the more locations we have, regardless of where we sit in terms of our regular airfares, when we've got more gates and we've got more service, that only adds more competition and helps keep costs low for our citizens. So few other quick things. The Northwest Florida Homeless Reduction Task Force has a nonprofit grant workshop. I believe you guys have a sheet out there, December 7th, 10 to 2:30 at Bayview. We're excited to host that. We've got the Neighborhood Challenge Grant Program we've had for a couple years. The applications will start being accepted on December 7th. And it's a matching grant program, and it provides the City of Pensacola neighborhood associations with funding to complete neighborhood improvement projects. We're going to do our best and kind of retool that a little bit in terms of making sure these are dollars that we want to make sure are getting spent in our community. And there's applications for things like neighborhood signage, beautification. And we are partners with those neighborhood associations. Again, it's a match program. So that's something I'm really motivated to make sure that we're getting those dollars out there, because I think that's better for our city. That's a one-to-one match with people who really care about seeing those projects happen. So I'm excited to get that. The applications will be available on cityofpensacola.com.
Sorry, that's actually December 1st. That was my fault.
Oh, excuse me. Okay, sorry, December 1st. And then the applications will be available at our website, cityofpensacola.com, through June 30th, 2023. All right, on the scooters, VO, we have required corral parking for those beginning downtown on December 7th. So we want to go ahead and let you know further in advance that riders can use the VO app, and they can refer to the map to see where parking is located and where it's required. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of people walking around downtown. We'll have more traffic, pedestrian traffic, and so having a little more control over making sure that these are being parked in the correct location, I think, is good for our businesses. It's good for our citizens, our visitors, making sure that they stay safe. So that will start downtown on the 7th. the Keep the Wreath Green, the fire safety campaign kicks off with our fire department on December 1st. It's a collaboration between our fire department and Escambia County Fire Rescue, and we had all green bulbs last year. We want to keep it that way. If we ever have a residential fire with damage, a green light bulb was replaced with a red one, just to be a reminder for citizens of the dangers, especially this time of year with decorations and lights and all of those things. So for the first time since we had the campaign last year, we were able to have 0 red bulbs. So hopefully we can keep that streak alive. And that's it. Those are our main things coming these next couple of weeks. As for me, as I said, we've hit the ground running. I've been so fortunate to have skilled and knowledgeable staff this not only these last couple of days, but really these last several weeks to make sure that we are ready to go. And I said that to you guys last week, that we were really going to see the fruits of that labor, so to speak, of just being able to already be integrated into what's going on. And so as we get into day 1 and day 2, I was asked on the radio this morning about, what's it like? Is it surreal, that this is something you've been working towards and now it's your first and second day? And I always, I tell folks, when you see your nameplate or you see your business card, some of those moments, but in terms of the day-to-day operations, I'm just so thankful that it's been business as usual. And it's just making sure that we're being urgent and intentional, not dropping anything between this transition and trying to get a lot of different things going. So I've been excited for that, and again, been very fortunate to have that big advantage. So, questions? Jim?
I guess I wanted to ask about something you mentioned about the scooter parking. Wasn't that already in effect requiring a team corrals?
Casey can probably clarify that, but I believe, or Amy, I'm sorry, if you want to clarify the difference.
No, we had the incentivized scooter parking up until now. What we did was that we included, when council's wishes was to enforce the more enforced parking in the downtown area, we created some additional scooter corrals in that downtown area. So now this is where we are at. We have the additional corrals in place. There will be a press release shortly after the press conference today, that will outline the actual areas and where all of those forced parking corrals are. But we have expanded the forced scooter parking area. Is now over further west towards Spring Street, and then further south down through Halifax and the Plaza de Luna area.
And I've been asked as well, just to add to that, I was very much in alignment with Mayor Robinson on the direction that we've gone with the seated scooters, being the priority, and how they're used, and the issues that we've had with something seated that feels like you should have it on the road versus, something where you're just standing where it could be used on the sidewalk or the road. So I was happy that we had gone that direction before I was here, and we'll certainly, continue that. And I will say, my email inbox is 2 days old as the mayor, but I know in these last few weeks since that change is made, we have seen a significant drop in complaints from our downtown business owners or residents that felt like they were in danger because of scooters and how they're being used. So,
Mayor, the Escambia County Legislative Delegation meeting is going to be in about 7 or 8 days.
Mm-hmm.
The mayor usually goes down there and tells publicly what the city's priorities are
Sure.
for the upcoming session. Do you know what your priorities are now? Can you share with us what you're going to tell them?
Yeah, we're working through those, and there's a lot of moving parts to that. Certainly, to get things across the finish line, there's strength in numbers, right? And so things that are important to us, that are also important to the county, that are also important to Senator Broxton and Representatives Andrade and Salzman. So I would say we're working through, some of that, what our priorities are, and just wanting to be aligned. But yes, we're having conversations. We did yesterday, we have already this morning, and we'll continue to have conversations about exactly what those 4 things will be.
Can you give us a hint of what's at the top of your list?
Well, I can give you a more general hint. We expect that there's going to be a lot of conversation about attainable housing statewide, and so we're exploring what our options are. And again, what that looks like, is that something that we can make a legislative ask on now versus something that we would react to during or after session. We don't know the sequencing yet, but obviously that's something we're going to be focused on. I've got some meetings coming up I know there'll be also, we believe, a big focus on resiliency, especially coastal resiliency in the state of Florida. And we certainly have some projects in that realm that has already had some publicity, not only our waterfront, but Bayou Tahar, Carpenter Creek. There's some things that certainly would be well aligned with that priority if that plays out. So I could see, to answer your question as best I can, I could see any opportunities that we have in the attainable housing and certainly in the resiliency, coastal resiliency, and the improvements that are much needed, with some of our waterways, that those would be something that we would want to be able to prioritize at the state level. Yeah.
Do you have any updated timeline on the transition report?
Yes. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. I should have told you that at the beginning. So we just finalized. We'll have our final transition team meeting on December 19th. I'll have to get you an exact time, but I know that will be the date, and that's where the vote. There will be a vote taken to approve the report that's sent to the mayor's office. So I know that Alex and Amy and all the staff are hard at work right now, getting those drafts in, getting things clarified. And again, I have a unique perspective because I was doing exactly what they were doing 4 years ago. And, there's a lot of, when you have 29 people, they have even more than I had. I had closer to 14. 29 people putting in reports, putting in recommendations. All they're trying to do is just make sure that the message that everyone wants to send is clear and as concise as possible in terms of knowing that it's going to be a long report. So we are in the editing phase and clarification phase of just making sure that it's the final product that our transition team folks want. And so December 19th is the plan as of now. Certainly if that changes, I'll keep you posted.
With that new report from them about the airport,
Mm-hmm.
this past weekend, Black Friday, it seemed like the overflow parking lot had to be open in the grassy area. Do you see maybe more, parking, accessibility
Sure.
to the airport?
Yeah, so I do know that there is some more surface parking. There's anytime you do anything out at the airport, there's a lot of different stakeholders, be it the carriers, be it FAA, all of that. But what I can say is there is tangible progress being made towards additional surface parking as we speak.
The escalators also, problems. I know they've got a new terminal possibly coming in.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and that's one of those difficult things. There's, it's not as easy as just, calling someone out to fix an escalator. We have some unique issues when things get older and we've got to get them maintained, is, needing specific parts that have a long run of supply. So I know it's frustrating. I've been talking about throughout this building and other buildings of the city. I've been talking about, my general challenge is, what does the customer see? And what I mean is, what does the taxpayer see when they walk in City Hall, when they walk into our airport? Sometimes can seem like a little thing, but those matter. I mean, it's the sense of pride that somebody takes in their community. It's a sense of pride that our employees have to show up at work every day. And so with fresh eyes and all of that, it's always an opportune time to kind of take a look at those things, how our parks look, all of those kinds of things is something that we've been talking about. And that's a perfect example is, elevators, escalators operating. I know they're on top of it, and we do have some unique challenges based on the age, but they do a great job down there, and we're really working hard to make that happen. Laura?
I'm often the caboose at these little meetings. So y'all have to forgive me when I
Go
ask
ahead.
things that everybody else
That's all
already
right.
knows. But precision in language is my thing.
Okay.
And somebody from my station may have asked you this already, but I love that we're all here together.
Uh-huh.
And it's been a subject of spirited debate in our newsroom. It used to be you'd hear about affordable housing.
Mm-hmm.
And now suddenly I'm hearing this phrase, attainable housing.
Mm-hmm.
And since housing is something that's so key to all of us, would you clarify just for once and for all, if all in the same room,
Sure.
what's affordable housing, what's attainable housing?
Well,
and how do we talk about
what
it?
I'll tell you is, I refer to both categories as attainable housing. That's how, now we'll use the word living affordably, but if we're diving into the English, when I say attainable housing, that is not meant, there are, if you Google it, there's 10 different definitions for 10 different things about, well, if you say affordable, it means this group of people, this group of income, and if you say attainable, it means that. When I say it, I'm talking about the problem as a whole. And it's fitting, in my opinion, because it is a holistic problem. It is market rate availability. We don't have enough. We have not built enough here in the city. So that is part of the equation. The folks that are most underserved, that is why we need to get this going and have more urgency, is to provide opportunity for people to live within their means and be able to live in the city and not be sent out because we don't have a place for them to live. And so from every end of the spectrum, I feel like there is no, if there was one solution, if we just built these kinds of buildings for this level of income, we would solve the problem, then everybody would be doing it. And so I look at attainable housing as a holistic word that is every part of the spectrum, from getting more inventory here, period, to help suppress rising rental rates, and then that having a reverberating impact not only on folks wanting to move here, but also creating more inventory, opening up more inventory for folks that can only afford $800 a month, $700 a month less. And so we can do these things simultaneously. And I think that is the most important thing I want to stress is we fall into this trap sometimes, I think, societally, where we say, well, you're either going to work on something for downtown private development to add more houses, or you're going to work on this. Absolutely not true. I have phone calls, I have meetings where we're talking about both things at the same time. We can do both, and we should be doing both. And so that's why I say I don't pick, okay, well, today we're working on affordable housing and tomorrow we're working on attainable housing. Attainable housing, I feel, is the most inclusive word of every direction that we're going, which is several, to make sure that we solve this crisis that we're in.
Absolutely makes sense, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anything else?
I guess, you've been on the job 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
Have you found anything that has surprised you yet as you take over?
No, not so much yet. I was on the way down here. I went to the second floor to come see you guys instead of the first floor, so that was a good learning experience. And funny story on after the swearing in, I come around the corner from the council chambers and I'm going up. I left my stuff on the 7th floor, and I had left my key, so I didn't have a way up. And then Alex, my assistant, had his keys and he puts them in and it didn't work. So he was like, "Are you trying to tell me something?" I don't know. 5 minutes after, so we're working through a few minor hiccups, but I'm sending an email out to every employee today. And I would say the one common theme, and this isn't necessarily a difference, but something that's been important to me is you get asked that question all the time, what do you want to do in a year, or what do you consider success? And I'm really trying to work from the inside out. And what I mean is, employee 1 through employee 850 plus is that I want to make this a great place to work. And that is something that is much more in our control. If a hurricane comes, if a pandemic comes, that could certainly thwart things that we want to do. We aren't going to not be urgent about those things, but one thing we can control is trying to make this a great place to work. And so, I'm getting surveys out to our employees at different levels to ask what's going really well, what are opportunities for improvement, what are some innovative ideas that maybe have collected some dust that we should look at again. The most important part of that is not just asking, but in my mind is for us to go back and say, here's what we've heard from you, and here is how our priorities have changed, or here's what we're going to emphasize based on what we're hearing from you. And I really, really value that feedback coming from every employee that we have. So I'm working, hard on that, and some mechanisms for employee engagement. I actually went and met with. I'd asked our HR director what's the policy for people on their first day. I want to make sure that I have some kind of touch point with every employee that ever starts here. And he said, well, we have meetings every other every other Monday, and everybody comes in and has a orientation, and so I went to the one yesterday, and we had about 8 people starting on their first day, and my joke was I told them the same thing I told you about wanting to make this a great place to work, but I was like, I thought this would be fitting because it's my first day too. So if any of you in here, we'll all be in this together. We'll have the same days served. So I'm really excited to get started in that. It's something that's been important to me at every step of my career, and we do have great people working here that care about this community. And you have to there's good days at work for all of us. There's bad days at work. And we've got people who really, really love this city and love seeing and having a positive impact. So I want to make sure that we embrace that, and that my goal, I've got a lot of goals. I got a lot of urgency about a lot of things, but one of the things I really want to make sure that we are in control of is making this a great place to work, and where people are happy to show up every day. Anything else? All right. Well, thank you guys so much. I appreciate having y'all.